Assalamualaikum and good evening to all webinar participants. Before we start, let me introduce to our moderator for today's webinar session, Prof. Tuti. Dr. Andanastuti Muchtar is a professor at Department of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or also known as National University of Malaysia. Her field of expertise is advanced ceramic technology. She obtained her Bachelor of Engineering and Master of Engineering from the University of Leeds, UK in 1992, and PhD from National University of Singapore in 1999. From October 2007 to September 2008, she spent 1 year on academic exchange to the University of Duisburg-Essen, funded by the German Academic Exchange Services, DAAD. Subsequently, she was appointed as head of the UKM International Office at UDE in Duisburg, Germany from 2010 to 2013. She later became the director of the UKM Graduate Center from 2013 until 2019. She currently heads of the Solid Oxide Fuel Cell Research Group at UKM and is an associate fellow at Fuel Cell Institute UKM. Her current research interests also include dental ceramic. Now, we welcome Prof. Andanastuti to moderate the webinar session.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat petang. Good afternoon, everybody here in Malaysia, and a special, very good morning, I would say, to our distinguished speaker, Professor David Hui in New Orleans. Thank you very much, Mike, for the kind introduction. And first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, I would really like to welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon. It's entitled Active Learning and Effective Teaching in the USA. So we've really got a lot to learn from Professor David Hui. Of course, now in terms of the pandemic, we are facing a lot of challenges, I would say, in teaching online, and when we have never been trained to teach online. So it's interesting today, I'm sure, for a lot of people. I can see a lot of familiar names in the participants list. Thank you very much, everybody, for being keen and wanting to come and join us this afternoon. I can promise you it's going to be a very interesting session with Professor David Hui. He's always very interactive. He's always very making a lot of humor during his classes. So personally, I've always enjoyed his talk. So it is really a great pleasure to be welcoming everyone to his talk this afternoon. So just before I introduce Professor David Hui, our distinguished speaker this afternoon, can I just kindly remind everyone there is a chat box, down at the bottom, where later on, when you have questions for our distinguished speaker, you may insert your question there, and I will try to get the attention of Professor David Hui in order to be for him to answer the questions. Yeah. And if you don't mind, in case there should be a lot of listeners or viewers from everywhere, from other countries in the world, apart from Malaysia, even from Malaysia, I would really love to hear if you could put something in the chat box where you're from, which university you're from. That it's going to be very exciting, not just for Professor David Hui, it's also for me, for UKM. So yeah, so now everybody, I'd like now to introduce Professor David Hui. He's a familiar face in UKM. He was here last year, and then this year also. He can't be here physically, but we have had a few sessions with him online. And today, I think this is the third time this year online with UKM. So Professor David Hui was born in Singapore in 1952. Well, it's there in the, okay, it's in the, anyway, sorry. So He obtained his PhD in aerospace engineering from the University of Toronto, and prior to that, he also received his Masters of Science and then his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Toronto as well. And interesting, ocean engineering from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Currently, he is now a professor at the New Orleans University since 1992, and all those in the materials engineering field know him. He is very well known for his expertise in composite materials and nanomaterials. And to date, he has published more than 400 high-ranking journals. And on average, his work is cited more than 4,000 times, per year. So that's really impressive. And I'm really very keen to see today that he's going to share not only just about his research, but also his teaching and how he conducts his classes. Currently, he serves as an editorial board member of over 40 journals, including the editor-in-chief for Nanotechnology Review Journal. Okay. So, I could go on and on about Professor David Hui, but I think let's just stop at that because we want to hear more from him and his talk, where he will highlight effective teaching skill that is able to connect and engage with the students. So that is very exciting during these times when students are so far away. And in Malaysia, of course, we know that a lot of students are not on campus. They are far away in their own homes. And therefore, lecturers face this challenge of how to connect to students who are not present on campus. So without further ado, Professor David Hui, are you already ready there? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. So thank you very much for joining us. Okay.
Right. Thank you very much.
The floor is
Thank you. Thank you, Tuti. Thank you, Tuti, for your help. And my pleasure here to present today on the active learning and effective teaching in the USA. So I'm going to look at the screen. So please turn on to the screen and look at it. And we are looking at how to teach, and then we put into 3 different categories. How to make the textbook alive, and how to convey the idea so the student get it from the teacher. And finally, we have the memorization, so the student will graduate and be able to remember what the teacher said. So that's the 3 key things. All right, so what is a teacher then? A teacher is someone who can then tell us what he thinks is the information to be of value to the listener. The teacher could be a high school teacher, a university professor, a conference speaker, PhD thesis defense people, sales department people, and the group leader, and so on. So the purpose of the teacher is that you want the student to remember what you said after the seminar is over. Now the question is, do you think that after the student graduate, they will remember you? And then while you're a student, you should know who is the good teacher, who is the bad teacher. So when you become a teacher later on, a so-called group leader, you don't want to be a teacher who cannot teach. Okay, now, first of all, the function of a teacher is to make a dead book alive. Now, this is a book, nothing wrong, it's a book. And then the book cannot speak, right? So you speak for the book. You speak for the book. Now, how do you speak for the book? And you must speak for the book so that the book can become alive. So this is the 3 pictures that summarize today's talk. How to make the textbook alive, how to transmit the information from the teacher to the student. Okay, this is the teacher, that is the student in the screenshot. You can look at the screen, please. This is the teacher trying to give this thing here to the student. Now you make sure the student get it first before you release your hand. Otherwise, this thing drop down is no good. Furthermore, you want to make sure the student is running. The student is not running. The student is sleeping. Then too bad. You run so hard to give it to him, he doesn't want it. Oh my God. Then finally, after the student write the final exam, are you sure the student remember anything you said? All right, those are the today's talk. Okay, now, first of all, why do we need teacher? We got textbook, right? So why we need teacher? Well, we need teachers because we want the textbook to come alive. Now, it's just like a movie, right? Why do you go to see a movie? You can buy the book from the textbook store, and the book will describe everything that is in the movie, because the movie is much more interesting. That's why professor is the movie actor, to make it interesting, to make it easier. So you can see that professor, so when you go home, read the book, it's much more easier, more meaningful, and save a lot of time. That's the key thing. It saves the student time. So the student will ask, do I need to attend class? Of course you attend class, so that you save the time to read the book. And also, of course you read the book, but the required time to read the book is a lot less because you attend the class. And then after the graduation, the textbook become a so-called user-friendly manual. User-friendly, okay? That's how the textbook come alive. Okay, now, then the next question is, okay, can I go on to the next question? Okay. Oh, I don't know why this thing doesn't work. Okay.
Are you okay, Professor
Okay,
David?
good, thank you. Okay. Let's look at the next slide here, and then the writing paper and being a teacher, are they similar? Well, in a way, it is. It is similar, okay? Because you're delivering a scientific content from the teacher to the student. But the key thing is the relay, right? The relay. Okay, now, be careful here, okay? Is when you write a journal paper, avoiding long paragraph, we prefer short, more focused type of a writing, right? Same thing when you're presenting a talk. Make sure it is more focused writing, okay? Then you choose careful word. Or for example, if I say left or right, okay, right could mean correct. So left, if you really mean correct, you should not use right. You should use the word correct. Use a synonymous dictionary. When you write the paper, you don't want to use the same word. Use a slightly different word, more interesting. All right. Now, this is how you write a paper, right? So there's so many things you need to do. And of course, when you present a seminar, go to a conference, you do more or less like this. You do more or less like this. But in the classroom, it's slightly different. Classroom, you don't have to worry about the scientific content. You worry about how to make the textbook alive. Now, where's the textbook? This is the textbook here. This is the book. Okay. Now, how do you make the book alive? That's the key question here. Okay. Now, first of all, you have a busy schedule here. This is the busy schedule. Week 1, week 2, week 3, different week. You're supposed to teach whatever you want to teach, right? I say the first week, introduction, second week, you teach atomic structures and so on. And then you look at the problem, whatever it is, and then so on and so on. This is not professor, this is problem, all right? So then the first midterm, second midterm, final. So you go through all this. Then you say, okay, are you sure that the student get what you said or not? Okay, this is the syllabus. Okay, now, each of the chapter here must have its own important point here, okay? Are there any linkage between different things here? If I say that all these are equally important, it cannot be equally important because some of the things are more important than the other. I have to try to emphasize that. So without going through this, I should get into the course and how you emphasize the thinking part of the course. Okay, now this is the next picture here, which is also very important here because you represent the book. Okay, the book is dead. You're making the book alive. Okay, so the book is now alive. You can see that, right? But the student is not alive. The student is dead. How you make the student alive? Okay, first of all, you must be alive. You get the book. Okay, you get the book. Okay, you represent the book. You're now running hard. This is you. This is the teacher here. Okay. Now the question is, what information is
Professor David Hui, I think you just muted accidentally your microphone.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now
Okay,
loud and
thank you.
clear.
Thank you. All right. Now, how do you make it easy for the student to understand it? That's the key part, right? Because when we look at this thing here, how do you make this thing easy for the student to get it? Okay. Now, the first thing is use layman terminology. How do you use that? For example, when I'm talking about all structures have nanocrack because the atoms are meeting, for example, right? And I can use that analogy called pre-existing condition. Then you know that. For example, when I say this material has nanocrack. Now, why do I know? How do I know this material has nanocrack here? You can say it has pre-existing condition. The student will immediately think because it's totally valid. I mean, valid today because we are talking about covalent 19. So when you don't talk about loose electron in chemistry, you talk about homeless electron. People think about homeless people need a home, right? So the electron will need to go someplace to bond with another atom or the electron to form an alloy or something like that, right? So and then use the body language. Use your hand. When you're a teacher, you must use your hand. You cannot just keep on talking, no hand. Okay, you can put the finger there and point the finger there and try to use your hand expression so that it make it more powerful. Okay, when you say something big, you should use your hand big like this. Don't put the hand down and say big. People do not understand big. People understand big like this. Okay, so that's called hand gesture is very important here. And show your object here. For example, when you say something has nanocrack, show the key. Show something so people can have more understandable thing. Number 3, you should use your jokes. Okay, be very not for funny things, not for waking people up, not for making people laugh. The jokes are for illustrating scientific equation. Every important equation must have a joke. Why? Because many years later, people will forget that equation, but people remember that joke and therefore remember that equation. And I think this is something you could do it. And of course, teachers should ask themselves questions. Self-ask question here, so that the student will understand better when you ask yourself and then you answer yourself. Okay, so these are a few teacher things that the teacher must know. One of the most important qualifications of a good teacher, right? Number 1 teacher. How do I know that person is a number 1 teacher? Now I'm going to compare 2 sentences, then you know what I mean. Okay, I said, that's right. A man walked very quickly to a superstore who is wearing a red coat. Now, this is a long sentence, right? The student will say, okay, that's right. Well, first of all, you should not say that's right. You should say that's correct, because left and right is not what it means. It's correct or wrong. That's what it means. Is it correct? So you should never use the word right when it's ambiguous. It could mean turning a left turn or right turn, right? So don't say right. So you say that's correct, comma, a man. Be more specific. Don't say man. You say Mr. Smith, okay? Walk very quickly. Well, why he walked very quickly? Because he's urgently walking. To the superstore, because he want to buy food, or he going to buy something for his family? Is it because of some special thing he want to buy flour? Or he need to go to the WC washroom? And then you write this, wearing a red coat. Now this part is not necessary. It's confusing, because if this is not necessary, do not write this thing here. Wearing what color coat? People are going to look at yellow color, blue color, yellow color. The student is totally confused. If this part is not necessary, delete this part. Make it more specific and shorter. Mr. Smith urgently walked to the WC. That's it. Right? It is shorter, much more informative, and it's much more clear. The professor must be clear. So you don't keep on talking about nonsense, but everything must be short, easy to understand, and full of detail. Oh my God, this is the 3 things. How do I know a professor is good? Okay, he for every sentence he writes, it's very short, very easy to understand, but full of information. Oh my God, this is very, very hard. And then you must train yourself for that. Otherwise, the student will fall to sleep. And the book is dead and the student is dead. Oh, come on. You want the book to be alive and you want the student to be alive also, right? In an Olympic relay. Okay, so then this is the key. Short, easy to understand, and full of detail. All right, now, the next question here is rechargeable. Now, why is it rechargeable? Now, there are two kinds of battery. One kind is the usual kind, right? When it run dead, it's no good. Now, so all professors are producing battery. The student is the battery, right? After graduation, after finishing the final exam, the student gradually and all students will become dead. If the battery will not alive forever. Okay, the question is, there are two kinds of battery. One is rechargeable, the other is not rechargeable. The professor is responsible to make it rechargeable. Now, why is it that the memory loss after graduation? Well, you see that that's a good teacher, a lousy teacher, right? A lousy teacher is the student will suffer permanent brain dead on the subject that the teacher said. Why is it permanent brain dead? Okay, because it's not rechargeable. Now, the other excellent teacher is it's rechargeable. That battery here, after the student go to the library, pick up the book and read it, they still remember how many years ago what the professor told me. Now that's called rechargeable battery. And that is the kind of teaching that is very, very important. Otherwise, if it's not rechargeable, if the whole entire semester on that course, everything is not rechargeable, then the student wasted that whole semester taking your class. Oh my God, that is very, very unfair. Why should the student pay the tuition, get something which is not rechargeable? That means he forgot everything you said. Oh my God, how can you do that? Now be careful. A professor must know the student also very busy. They take many other classes. So how do you make it clear that the student get it? Okay, that's called memory loss. Now, while you're teaching, you have to do something, because there are some students who could remember the teacher said 10 years later, 20 years later, can still remember because they are rechargeable once they read the book. Okay. The question is, why is the student not able to remember what the professor said? Number one reason, spoon feed. Now, who is spoon feed? Now, for any one of you who has baby, you know that the baby needs to be spoon feed because they doesn't know how to feed, how to eat anything, right? So the father and mother give the food to the child. But the goal of the spoon feed is someday the child will grow up who does not need that spoon anymore. That's the same as the teacher. The teacher must teach everything. I know that. Make the book come alive and everything in the book presented in a class. I know that. But the idea is you have to feed it in there. Okay. Now, of course, spoon feed is better than no feed because at least the baby is getting a little bit, right? The baby getting a little bit. But then the question still is, okay, the baby does not know what you feed them, but they need that food to survive, just like a patient too, right? A patient unable to use the hand, but that's not the same as refuse to use the hand, right? That when you're a teacher here, you are a very bad teacher if you spoil your kid. Now, a long time ago, I saw some adult parent, father and mother, and they keep on feeding the food to the kid. When they grow up, even still feeding it. You know, you're spoiling your kid, and the kid grow up, and then they are unable to use their talent. That's very, very unfair to the student. So that's why the teacher must not spoil the teacher by spoon feeding the whole class. Oh my God. Okay. So this is the number one reason why after the final exam, the student forgot everything what the professor said, because it's just like a patient in the hospital, keep on eating all the medicine, have no idea what the medicine is, keep on eating it, and hopefully the medicine is good for them. Okay, now, then the next question is, insufficient reasoning. Now, what is insufficient reasoning? You should understand what is insufficient reasoning, because we have the idea right now. Why permanent brain dead? Reason number 2. The teacher did not explain why. Okay, the teacher said A plus B equal to C. Nobody know why. and then nobody find out, try to find out whether there's any evidence that this is happening. Now, going back to the same sentence I read to you. A man walked quickly to the superstore wearing red coat. Professor said, memorize it. No need to understand. No wonder the student will never remember what you said, because he just memorized it. He didn't know why. He had never gone through the reasoning. And that's why the student also hate your class, because you tell the student keep on memorizing everything, the student squeezed everything in the brain, and then very unhappy, because you squeeze too many things there. A lot of things need not be memorized. So you must train them. Okay, only the fundamental part need to be memorized. So the second reason for brain dead is insufficient reasoning. Number 3, force fed. Now that's what we just said. Okay, force fed is better than no fed. But then you should also make sure the student are rewarded instead of being punished. Okay, so you should be able to make it enticing, so the student want to eat it, not just forced to eat it. Okay, now that's the way you make it clear. Now, we also want to make sure that the teachers are not well focused. Why? Okay, the teacher said, this is the book. Now, what is important? Every sentence here is important. Now, are you stupid or something? Everything is important. That means the student's gonna say, what am I gonna read it? There are 10,000 sentences here. There are 10,000 sentences. Every sentence is important. That is the same as impossible to remember what you said. So you should isolate the important things. Isolate the important thing. Okay. Find something so that you make it easier to memorize. How do you memorize something easily? How do you memorize it? For example, pi is 3.14, right? So if somebody has a birthday, March 14, good for you. Then you automatically memorize it. Now, or you can find 2 other ways to do that, to help you memorization. First of all, you can say that your grandmother write something and put it in the refrigerator. Why? Because the grandmother, every time the grandmother opened the refrigerator, they can see what she wrote, so she will not forget. I got it now. So you tell the student, dear student, write the equation very big and put it on the refrigerator. So you see it every day, so you remember it automatically. There's no need to force yourself to remember it. Now, if this is not enough, then write on a big piece of paper and tape it to the wall. And you walk around in the living room every day. You see the big equation every day, right? So it's automatically memorized. Oh, good for you. Now, if you're sleeping on a bed, write the equation and tape it onto the ceiling so that you can see the equation in the ceiling. You automatically remember it because you see it every day. Now that helps. Okay. Now, on the other hand, how do you memorize things? Write something big so you can see it every day. For example, if you talk about something like a model, you put that model on your desk so you see it every day, so that you dream about it. Hopefully you dream about it, right? That would be even better. That means while you are sleeping, you still dream about what you are thinking every day, because you see that every day. All right, so that's a good teacher. Good teacher minimize the memorization whatever way, so that you are concentrating the one that is no need to that you already memorized, so you can think better, so you don't have to spend all the time memorizing things. Okay, now the teacher should make sure that when you go to the classroom, you want to know, I spent 1 hour with my student. Which part of my 1 hour I want my student to remember this for the rest of his life? Oh, how do I do that? I say, I'll repeat that thing 5 times, 10 times, 20 times to make sure that the student remember 20 years from now, they still remember. Remember means rechargeable. They still cannot remember, but when they read the book, they remember. Now that is the part that you need to know. Now, if the professor does not know, then the professor is just nonsense, no use. The professor must know. Are there something very important? If that thing is extremely important here, then you create a joke, J-O-K-E, right? Based on that important concept. And then make the joke, everybody laugh. So then 5 years later, they forget everything you said, but they still remember the joke. And then therefore remember the important thing that the professor wants them to remember. Okay, now that is called rechargeable battery teaching, because this is the critical issue which everybody ignore in Malaysia. Nobody cares if the student remember anything. Nobody know why they do not remember anything. Now I know they should be done properly in the classroom. Rechargeable battery. Okay, now then how do you make the student motivated? That's the very hard part, right? Because why the student go to school? Because they want to get a better job. They say, I got it. So can you find a motto that will be enabling the student to study harder? Okay, really? Can you do that? Well, let's see. All things are made of material. There is no such thing which you can see, but it's not made of a material. Therefore, there are lots of jobs. I'll say, my God, when you say this, people will say, oh, I love it. I love material science. I love material science because there are lots of jobs. How do I know there are lots of jobs? Because there's nothing in the universe that you could see which is not made of material. Therefore, material is very, very important. Oh my God, that means any job you find, it has something to do with material. Oh my goodness. That motto motivates everybody so that the student comes alive. Really? Get me that. Show me that picture here. This picture here. This student here was there to begin with. Because I say everything is made of material. There are lots of jobs. This student is not that anymore. He come alive. Now the professor here know that he come alive and he give him the information. He got it. Normally he doesn't get it because he's too tired. He has got so many other things to do. Oh my God! Then that's the way you motivate the people. You don't punish people. You motivate people. Secondly, the student lose the self-esteem. Why? Because the student does not have money, or the student is very poor and looking for some kind of hope, but that the professor can rescue them. Now, how does the professor rescue them? They are good students, but low esteem. They think they are nothing. Why they are nothing? Because the professor always say, dear student, you are nothing. Don't do that. You should say, well, as a teacher, I told my student, everything I have come from who? Well, some students said, well, you come from your own wallet, right? Come from your bank, come from your own money, come from professor's money. I said, no. It's not come from my money. It come from you being enrolled at my university. Without you, I will have nothing to wear. I have no car. I have no house. I have nothing. I said, oh, really? And I thank my student gratefully. You see, when the students see the professor so humble like this, they are so touched and they say, oh my goodness, I should not have that self-esteem. I am so important. The student feel important because without the student, the professor will be unemployed. Wow, elevate the student position, right? The student feel good. Secondly, I told my student that when I was your age, I work in a restaurant washing dishes and nobody know whether I have enough money to live for tomorrow. Oh my God. The students can think of me now. I am a professor. If I could make it, dear student, you could make it. That will bring the low esteem up from the student, and as I said, the professor make that book come alive, and the professor also make that student to stand up and come alive. Oh my goodness, this is called self-esteem. I know that. Oh, I see. Now, then the idea is, if the student is motivated, why do we need the exam? Well, the exam should be able to enhance the student thinking, okay? In other words, you should emphasize thinking, not emphasizing memorizing. Because we are in the modern age, we have powerful computer. We have everything there available for doing the memorization for you. But the computer is not able to do the research for you. Not yet, at least, okay? The computer is not able to give you the thinking that you need to. So that's why the teacher must cultivate the thinking part of the student in the exam, all right? Now, that's why in the undergraduate study here, we need to emphasize the non-design and the design problem. Now, why is it not design problem need to be understandable? Because it's just like medicine, right? The student has to eat the medicine. It doesn't matter what the medicine is. So, you know, it's good for the student. Take it. It doesn't matter you like it or not. Take it. That's what I mean. Now, that's what I meant by non-design problem. Non-design problem is like a medicine, good for the student. It doesn't matter you understand it or not, take it. Now, but then the design problem is different here. The design problem here is designed to be open-ended. There's no definitive answer to that. Now, those are the problem here that will enable the student to think and to be an intelligent being. Why do you go to school? Of course, I already mentioned, you want to find a job. I know that. Another reason is you want to satisfy your intellectual curiosity, okay? So how do you do that? Well, I just said that you're gonna motivate people, right? How do you motivate people? You said, we are using the same textbook as the top school in the world. MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Princeton, and Ivy League, and so on. Okay, and of course you can mention many other schools in Europe, Cambridge, Oxford, in Malaysia, University of Malaysia, UKM, and so on, right, and so on. So you say that we are using the same textbook and the same standard as the other school. Now, to do that here, you have to be a good teacher to make sure that the student do the design problem here. Now, design problem is different here because you cannot just spend the hour on it and you get it. No, the design problem is testing your intelligence, not just testing your hard work. So you need two things. When the student wants to succeed, you need two things: hard work, and you need the degree of intelligence. Now, that intelligence is measured in terms of open-ended question here, because that you cannot study. Now, you will study if the professor can lead you. And that's why the suitable exam is, if you do all the non-design problem well, you get a B. But in order to get an A, you have to do a little bit more than just doing all the non-design problem. Okay, all textbooks now have design problems. So I should hope that you will recognize that. Okay, so how do I know that the teacher is good? First of all, the teacher is good if the teacher understands who the quality of the students are. Just like if you are the coach of a football team, how good is the coach? The coach would, well, of course, they want to win how many games, I know that. But the coach is no good if he does not understand what is this prayer? What is he going to do? He got something good, something not so good, right? The coach must understand who those people, who those players are in the team. Now, that's the number one thing here. Understanding the quality of the student is very, very important for a teacher. Now, if the teacher doesn't care, I just present a talk. I then present my lecture here. I don't care who my the A student, B student, the C student, and so on. Be careful here. Some students are excellent in hard working, but it's not so intelligent. Some students are excellent intelligent, but not so hard working. Some students are somewhere in between, right? Some students are good students, and so on. So there are some handicapped students, some because of the economy, and there are some people who have certain difficulty in the school. So the professor must understand who he got in the school. All right. Now, secondly, you should use the physical object analogy, such as pre-existing condition. I mentioned that already, right? To stir up the interest of the people. For example, when I said that the two material about to be separated. Okay, so in other words, the material the loose here, right? This is my eyeglass. Okay, my eyeglass here, and that screw here is about to be lost. Somehow you drop out and this thing fall out. Instead of falling out, I could say that this material is now improperly bonded together, and somehow you need to bond them together. And somehow I use the word divorce to describe the lamination, the separation of the two parts, for example. So this is called layman language. And that's for the beginning people, you use layman language. As you get back later on, you get back to the scientific language, of course. Of course. Now, some professors cannot speak loud. Why? Because they're using the throat, okay? And you should use the diaphragm when you teach, okay? Your diaphragm here, this is the diaphragm that I'm showing you, right? This is like singing, right? When you do the singing, you have to have the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is not good, not suitable. That's why, I mean, it is suitable. So that's why you don't do it. And you cannot do that. You cannot use the diaphragm, you use the throat. Then use the magnifier on the sound magnifier. You can build it into your laptop computer. You can magnify your voice from the laptop so the student could hear you better. All right. Now, then item number 4, you have big class, you have small classes. You got big classes here, you call recitation. In UK system, you call it recitation, or you can call it tutorial. And then in America, we call it the small group teaching assistant, take care of the part that the professor does not have time to do it. And you got to watch what the students are good or bad by relying on your recitation tutor. Okay, you should know your tutor. Okay, how the tutor would give you the feedback as to the class is getting too difficult, so they're not getting it. Most of the students are not getting it, so you got to change it, make it easier to get it. Okay, in other words, there is a connectivity here in the Olympic relay. The students are not getting your information. Okay, now if you have smaller classes, you have a choice, right? Now, what choice? You can ask the student to solve some problem on the blackboard. Okay, some people do that, some people do not do that, but at least there is a choice. You can do that. And should we use PowerPoint slide or the blackboard? Well, that's another question too, right? So it depends, because teaching is an art. Teaching is not something the same for every teacher. Some teachers like it this way, some people like it the other way. So I leave it up to you. Okay, now, the class attendance is compulsory or not? Okay, now, the key to the teaching is when the teacher teach certain concept on the blackboard, does the teacher know and able to predict who will understand the teacher? Okay, so if I say F equal ma, force equal mass times acceleration, I should estimate how many people in the audience cannot understand me. Cannot understand me, really? Then who will not understand me? How do I know that they do not understand me? That's why we have quizzes and midterm. So after the quiz, okay, the professor should grade his own quiz. Do not let the TA grade it. So after the quiz, the professor get a good idea. Certain students cannot understand certain things. Therefore, you have to slow down or speed up according to what that midterms are. Okay, that's called interactive teaching, right? Interactive teaching must have the correct prediction. Now, interactive teaching means you predict that certain part of the book, or certain part of the book, okay, the student could not get it. Okay, now if half of the class cannot get it, then you know there's something wrong. Either the book is not coming alive or the student is dead. Remember the picture there? Called a relay, right? The relay. Now that relay thing is a very important part of the teaching here. It's called it's an active teaching. It's called an interactive teaching. Interactive teaching require what? Require two persons to come alive. The teacher must come alive and the student also come alive, so that the information in a book can be go from the teacher to the student. That's the relay in the Olympic. Now, every time you go to the classroom here, you ask the question here: is the teacher dead, or is the students dead, or both? They're both died. They're both dead. Why is the teacher dead? The teacher is not able to get a dead book alive. That's the problem here. The book is not dead. It's only that we require the teacher to make it come alive. Just like the movie director in a movie, the director wants the actor and the actress to make the script come alive in the screen. Oh my God. That's the number one job of the director, right? So the question still is the book alive? And then you can ask the question, is the student alive? All right, so then how do you make them alive? Well, in other words, if half of the student doesn't get what you said, and you keep on teaching, then you know the student's getting worse and worse. Okay, so there is a so-called domino effect, because if he cannot eat anymore, you squeeze more food to him, he will not be able to digest it. Am I right? Yeah. You see, the student said, the professor said, I don't care. I just squeeze everything in there, and that's my job. I say bye-bye. No, don't do this. Don't do this. Okay. The active teaching is that there must be an understanding on the quality of the student able or not able to accept the teacher. In other words, the professor should constantly looking at a relay. You know, what's the difference between a relay and a 100-meter race? Single person race. What's the difference? Well, a relay requires you to pass something from the teacher to the student. That's what a relay is. Okay, you're not running the only show. You're not the only one-person show. So if you're running your own 100-meter race, you can run as fast as you can. There's no need to worry about somebody else. There's no need to worry about that you have to pass something to somebody else. No need. But teaching is not the same. The teaching is not one man running a 100-meter race. No, a teaching is a one person holding something, run certain distance, and give it to the second person who will run for you. Oh my God, that's what the teaching is. Now, then, if you define teaching as a relay in the Olympic, that's a totally different kind of teaching than the ordinary teaching in Malaysia. Okay, in Malaysia here, we are starting a new revolution in teaching. Okay, so that this is called active teaching. Active teaching means two person, not one person running, two person. Now, when I say two person running, the minimum that I require is that at least the professor is running. The professor is not even running. So come on, we got a dead professor. I mean, the professor is not dead, but the professor is not able to make that book come alive. That's the problem here. That's the book here. Okay, your job is to make this book become a daily living book, so that the students know this is not a dead book. Okay. Now, if you teach in the classroom, the students go home and never read the book. That's the same as the dead book, because the purpose is that you do not have anything written in record like this. Okay, and the memory loss will be there, so you will get nothing back, because eventually you want to make sure that you transformed to become a living human being living inside the book, and the book will be with the student for the rest of his life. Can you do that? Now, if you do that, you're a good student. I'm sorry, you're a good teacher. I repeat again, if I want to be a good teacher, I will make that book, this is the lousy book, not the lousy book, an excellent book, but to make this book come alive from the grave. So then I myself as a teacher live inside the book. And for the rest of the student's life, the students carrying me into their so-called job market. Oh my God, that is the way that the professor should be. Okay. In other words, for the rest of the life of the student, my teaching enter into the mind of the person, and that book from now on is alive. Oh my God. Then you look at this thing here. How many students will be able to welcome this kind of interactive teaching? No, then there should be some rule, right, in the classroom. because I talk about everything from a teacher viewpoint, but I also have to understand where is the benefit of my talk today to the student. The student know that they are not forever students. Someday the student will be teacher. Now, if they are not teacher, then at least a group leader, at least a group leader in a country, in a industry, and so on. So a group leader should be the purpose of the classroom. The purpose of the teaching is to produce good group leader in the future. Okay, what are the group leader? Well, they have to have certain rules, right? No mobile phone, and no you got to attend the classes, and then no late in the classes. The teacher must not enter the classroom late. And in the case then when you have a big class, usually if you have a big class, that class is an important class that everybody must take that class, no choice. And because there's no choice, the students are not happy. Okay, why? Because I didn't choose their choice. Their choice was not my choice. Is forced upon me. Okay, now for those kind of classes here, the teacher got to be careful, because this is the fundamental class where the other classes depend on. In the future years, the next year, the professor who is teaching the next class would depend on what the student learned from my class. So if the student almost passed but did not pass, please do not give them the so-called mercy upgrade. No mercy upgrade from a not pass to just pass, because if that person just passed, he will take on to the next class, and you heard the other professor teaching the next course based on this course. All right, now, and please no daydream here, and we need hard thinker. The teacher's job is not to force the student to be a hard memorizer. No, the teacher's job is to make the student thinking hard, 24 hours a day if possible. Now, how do you think hard? Well, you should have developed some kind of a strategy. What strategy? Because if I were a student, I want to know what kind of attitude I have, so that I will satisfy all 6 different minimum expectations. The answer is, I should develop a habit so that I will feel bothered. If I read the book, okay, I read the book, and there's something I do not understand, that bothers me. Now that if the student said, this bothers me, now the student is a good student. That's good student. If the student cannot understand it, they say, okay, so what? I'm very happy. That's not a good student. That's not a good student. Okay. Now he may be getting an A in the class, but that's not a good student. A good student should have something that bothers them. And because it bothers them, so while they're eating breakfast, eating lunch, whatever, they still feel something bothers me. I don't know why. Maybe certain equation I do not understand. That's why I am having dinner. I don't feel good eating dinner. Oh my God, that is a good attitude for the student, right? If the student has that kind of attitude, don't worry. He will satisfy all the minimum expectation for the student. Can you develop that? Well, how about yourself? You as a teacher, me as a teacher, right? When you do not understand something, does it bother you? If it doesn't bother you, do not expect it to bother the student. The student will not get bothered, okay? Because you should develop yourself, okay? When you do not understand the equation, does it bother you? No? Then you should, why should you be a student teacher? You should not be a teacher then. Forget about it. Find some other job. You see, if you do not understand something that you must know and you should know as a teacher, then at the minimum, develop that so-called bothered attitude. Something bothered me. I didn't get it. But maybe you take 1 year to understand that, because I have no time to find out the answer. But at least during that 1 year, this kind of stuff somehow bothered me. That's a very good attitude. So when the professor developed that attitude here, the professor is able to bring the same attitude to the student. All right, now, in other words, how do the student get motivated? And that's the same thing, right? The item number 2, right? The item number 1, how to get the dead book alive. Item number 2, how to get the student alive, the student dead. Why? Because they're not motivated. Now, that will come alive is the job of the teacher, right? And the student come alive is the obligation of the student. Okay, now how did the student come alive? Then, in other words, the students were giving too much heavy load every day, so heavy. The student hate the class. Okay, now the student need to have good grade as a motivation, right? The grade, the student getting too low, no scholarship, no job, and everybody look down on the student. The student is crying. Okay, how do you get that motivation back to the student? The answer is get good grade. Then how can you get good grade? Of course, I want good grade. Well, the answer is review the same day. That's the most important advice I can give to the student. And that advice give me the major reason why I did well as a student long time ago. Okay, now it takes me a long time to develop that trick. You call it the most important trick. And it's the most important gift I give to the Malaysian student, because this gift I usually try not to give it to others. I was so selfish when I was a student. I don't give this gift to anybody. Now I tell you why it works. Why is it that the student, after he said he worked so hard and he's never able to get just C, ABC, to get a C grade, that's it. That's unfair. I work very, very hard. I just barely pass. Why? The answer is, depend on how you work hard, right? After the same day the teacher teaches, you should review what the teacher said same day, not tomorrow, not next week, not 2 weeks later. Why? It's just like when you wash the dishes. Do you wash it 2 weeks later? Or do you wash the dishes the same day? Now, if you wash the dishes the same day, there'll be no need to buy detergent. No need to buy detergent. You can just put the dishes into the tap. It rings it. You rinse it. That's it. You say, wow, so easy. Of course, it's easy because you eat the dinner, you wash the dishes immediately. That's the key fact here. Same thing. If you go to school, you go, no matter how tired, that same day, you go home, you must, 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes, okay? Review what the teacher said, because you're rinsing it. You're not rinsing it. You're not using detergent to really, really work hard to clean the dishes. Same day, okay? Now, when you say 3 credit hour, what does it mean? That means 3 contact hour from the professor to the student every week. For each hour, contact hour, the students must spend 2 hours at home. That's the rule in America. Now, that's for average quality or above student. If you below quality, you should spend more than 2 hours at home, okay? And those 2 hours are immediately after the teacher said something. Same day. Now, if you do not do the same day, 2 hours, then if you do it tomorrow, that will not be 2 hours. It will be 3 hours. If it takes 2 more days later, you will require 4 hours to do the same job as 2 hours. Really? Yeah, because you're not washing the dishes the same day. Actually, the same day is too late. It's washing the dishes within 1 minute after eating your dinner. Oh my God. That is the biggest gift I can give it to you. Okay, secondly, you write the important equation in and tape it into the refrigerator so that you can see it from a distance. You can see it from 10 feet away. Actually, 3 meters away. From 3 or 4 meters away, you can see that equation tape on the refrigerator or tape on the wall. Use a magic marker to write it. Okay, got it? So I think you can get an idea. Okay, and what I mean by writing a good report like this, and write it out and put it on the wall. Okay, item number 2. All right, to minimize the need for memorization. So the system should be automatically, naturally, easily memorize all the important equations here. Now, how do I know which equation need to be memorized, which equation not need to be memorized? The answer is, for each chapter in the book, at the end of the chapter here, there are some problem you need to solve. When you solve those problems here, you utilize certain equations in the book, right? For every time you use that equation, use the pencil. Put a check mark on it. And at the end of the day, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, you see the equation here, and you see beside the equation here, there is no check mark. That means less frequently used. The one with lots of pencil check mark are the important equation. Those are important equations. You must write it out big and put it on the wall and see it every day for the next 3 months. I got it. Now that's the way you motivate the students to minimize the number of hours to study and get maximum with the performance from the class. That's why you should do that. Okay, item number 3, teaching is the best way to learn. Ask the teacher, ask the student to get at least the phone number of one other student, so that one take care of the odd problems, the other take care of the even problems, right? And they teach each other. Very important. So that sometimes when I was a student, I learned more from fellow students than from the professors. Item number 4, you visit the professor in the office hour early. I mean, not early, but I mean frequently, because you can then get more by after the class, the professor teaching, you ask the professor question here, and the professor can give you additional insight, and you develop a thinking habit. That's what I told you already. Item number 5, you should have something to bother you if you cannot understand certain things. Okay, now until that thing that bother you disappear, you feel not comfortable, because certain things I do not understand. It should develop a discomfort for you so that you can get better grade. But out of all these things here, the most important thing is the washing dishes thing. That is the most important part of the secret that I can guarantee you, you'll be a happy student in any university. That the same day you must spend 2 hours out of the same hour the professor teach, same day if possible. Okay, remember, if you wait tomorrow, you're gonna add some time. Okay, now this is the so-called credit hour classes here. Then, and I think, how much time do I have? Can somebody ask me? Can somebody tell me? Do I still have enough time?
You probably have around about 10 minutes. Is that okay?
10 minutes, okay, 10 minutes, right? So you should be able to see that this is the flow chart from first year, second year, third year, fourth year. You should have a flow chart like this. Do you have something like this? Tuti, do you have something like this?
Yes, we do. Our department. Huh? Yes.
Yeah. So you take what classes in the freshman, what classes second year, the third year, and the fourth year, right?
Yes, correct.
So if your class is somewhere on the first year and the second year, and a lot it's a big class, be careful here. All the subsequent classes are based on your class. So you should talk to the professor later on, have some connection between your class and the professor who will teach the student who require knowledge from the earlier classes. So you should, this professor here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 professors to get together. So to coordinate things. You cannot just give the program to the professor. The professor keep on teaching. The professor keep on teaching. No way. You have to have 4 professors here. All the 4 classes that are linked together like this to sit down and find out if some difficult concept cannot be covered adequately. You should inform the following professor. Say, "Dear professor, I'm sorry, this part should be done in my class, but I just do not have time. Please take care of it for me." Then they'll say, "Okay, yeah, you should know that."
So then every semester.
Yeah, every semester, of course. This is called coordination, right? This is what teaching is. This is what teaching is. If you teach the professor in the classroom here, he teaches only one class. He doesn't care what the following year what the previous class teachers are teaching. Then this is called disconnected teaching. No way you have a disconnected teaching and you say, "Oh, this is the top school in Malaysia." No way, you become a lousy school. Why are you a lousy school? Because the student is supposed to learn that, he didn't learn that, and then the following year the professor wondering how come my student get a C in my grade. That's what the student said, "I work really hard, I still get a C." Why you get a C? Because the previous semester the teacher did not teach certain things properly. I say, oh my God, that is the teacher's job. That the 4 teacher the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, they're all in together, right? So they should have a coordination. If they have, the chairman of the department should make sure that this coordination is going on for the common good of the student. Okay, that's a very important improvement that I want to propose to you, right? So I give you many things, and I worry that that you forget things. Now, are there any questions from the student? Any questions from the student?
From the audience, you mean?
Yeah, from the audience. Yeah.
Okay. I could read a question here from somebody, I think he's from UPM, Asrafuddin Basri. He has a question in the chat box, if you could refer to that. He's asking, how do we utilize the anticipatory set to keep students engaged in teaching and learning activities when the classes are implemented virtually? So I think a lot of questions in Malaysia is linked more towards how do we actually try to teach students in virtual environment, like virtual classroom.
How do I see the writing here? Can you show me the writing here? Where's the chat? Can I see that, please?
Yeah, you can go down below. There is a chat box. Yes.
Where's the chat box? CHAT? I cannot see the chat box. Can you help me, please?
Mike, I need the technical person to help me. Mike.
I can see mute, stop video, security, participant, new share, and pause share, annotate, remote control.
Chat box at the bottom.
Oh, I got a chat 20. Oh, there's 20 questions here now. Okay.
Only one question actually, right at the bottom.
At the bottom here. How do we utilize anticipatory set to keep students engaged? Now, what is the anticipatory? I don't understand that.
It's a new term as well for me, so I googled it up. It's something like a bait in order to get students be interested to come to your class for the next session. So how do you keep students, interested and keen and looking and anticipate a class?
How to get the students anticipate the class? I told you already.
Well, unless Mr. Ashrafuddin, would you like to speak to Professor David Hui yourself?
Yeah. Explain to me what anticipatory mean, so I understand that. So somehow it's an enticement for students to come to class and get interested in that.
Yeah. I think it's
I can suggest is every Friday afternoon, try to avoid having classes, no classes, and then the students get together for pizza and something to eat, right? So get to know each other, so that I say student learn from student, right? You're supposed to learn. So
yeah, but the challenge now, Professor David Hui, is that in Malaysia, the students are not on campus yet. So they are actually at home, studying at home. So they have to face this teaching online every day. And how do you actually engage them when they're, off campus?
How do you engage them? First of all, not that the professor is engaging them. The students should engage themselves. That's the problem here. You see, this is called peer pressure, right? You should put the peer pressure on the student. So the student feel like, if I do not spend the effort on it, my good friend gonna look down on me. Now, is that good? I think, I should try to make sure that the student feel that the pressure is not just from the professors, it's from the student. Why? Because the professor cannot teach if the professor cannot entice the student. I give you enticement already. You wash the dishes every day. If you do not wash the dishes every day, your load will be so heavy because you forgot what the professor said. So you no matter how much you work hard, you have to spend 10 hours for the same thing that you could have done in 1 hour, because you waited 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, you forgot everything. You now say, okay, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, because it's just like washing dishes, right? And then secondly, you have to be more towards the so-called tutorial, right? That's the small group tutorial. That's why every student must compare answer, right? You have to pretend to teach. Maybe it's not that good, but you try to teach so that you can guess this. Oh yeah, let's get together in the next lecture and see whether Professor Hui can clear up the question here together. So the peer pressure from the student will help. And most importantly, if these two things doesn't help, there should be an office hour. Even if you do that in remote teaching, the professor must provide office hour, and that office hour has to be fixed. It cannot be just, doesn't matter what, or you can make appointment by making a phone call. Nobody will make appointment because the students are so shy, okay? The students are very shy. So then they're not going to say, okay, dear professor, can I see you Thursday at 1 o'clock? You're not going to do that Thursday, 1 o'clock. The professor is very busy, the student is very busy, too much trouble. So you should be able to make sure that make it easy to have the professor always there. No matter question or no question, the professor during that office hour is the same as teaching hour. The professor must answer question because the professor is paid to do the job. All right.
Yeah.
So this is how the students see the professor in the outside the so-called classroom. It's very important too.
Yeah, that's a really important point. So, Professor Hui, shall we continue with the next question, or do you want to?
I have many things to teach, but because we are now only 20 minutes before the end of the hour, and then I cannot teach that long. I better answer more questions, please. If not, no more questions, I will keep on teaching, of course.
There are other questions. I think a lot of people are so keen. You know, when you mentioned just now that there is always a joke for an equation. So yeah somebody, Noraini Othman, I think, is asking you, you know, an example, how to make a joke on equations.
Yeah, in other words, on important equation, not all equation. On the important equation, there must be a joke. Because if you do not have a joke, the student will forget. Okay. Now, how do you make a joke on the equation here? For example, that's in a composite material, right? This is the so-called layer, right? This is the layer, composite material. Okay. And then you have so-called, you have the fiber, have the resin. Okay. Let's see. This is the resin. Okay. And then you have to put it in a fiber, some kind of a resin, and you can say that this is the resin. Okay, this is the resin, right? Okay, and this is the fiber. Okay, you can put it together here, and then this is called composite material. Okay, composite material, and there's so many equations for fiber pull out. The fiber pull out means that if you hit the composite, and if the fiber will kind of easily come out, that means it's called debonding. And then the debonding is because, it's not because the fiber is bad. It's not because the resin is bad, but because these two guys are not compatible. And you put it together, it's not compatible. That means when you hit it hit the composite like this, okay, this thing can easily come out. So the joke is, why the husband and wife get divorced? Not because the husband is bad, not because the wife is bad, but because the two are not compatible. That's the most important keyword in composite material. That's the problem here. People try to improve the fiber, people try to improve the resin, no use, because these two are not compatible. You cannot put it together. Wow, no matter how good this is, you put it together, you cannot. You see, when you put the word non-compatible, that's the most important keyword in composite material. And that happened to reflect reality. Reality is, no matter how good the boyfriend is, no matter how good the girlfriend is, they two cannot get married, cannot. Okay, now this is a joke, right? So this has got some important practical implication on the equation here. There are lots of equations at which you can predict where the two parts cannot join together and can disjoin. And therefore, that's a joke. And you can design lots and lots of jokes like this, but not just for fun, not just to wake up the people from being too tired. No, you have to be on the equation. So that's the key. That's the key. So you make the students remember that forever, because then 20 years later, they may forget what I said today, but they remember the joke on divorce. The boyfriend, no matter how good, girlfriend, no matter how good, they remember that, right? And I got one more joke for you. The slope is rise over run. Am I correct? Rise over run. You know how I do that? I kneel down on the floor. I stand up, okay? And I run. Got it? The slope is rise over run. You got it? That's the definition of slope. Everybody learned that from high school. The definition of slope, S-L-O-P-E, is rise over run. So the professor kneel down on the floor and he stand up, that means rise. And I run. I run 3 meters. So people know rise over run because they saw the professor stand up and they told the professor run in the classroom. Rise over run. So they will remember the definition of slope forever because I make that illustration in the classroom.
Yeah,
So
I remember when you run.
Yeah, rise over run. In other words, the professor should be an actor in the classroom. That's what it means. That's why you go to the movie to see go to the theater to see the movie instead of reading the script for the movie, right? So the same thing. You should be like making the book easy to understanding by performing like a movie star in the classroom. Got it now? So you should not be afraid to run in front of the students so people can see what you're doing so that they can remember for the rest of their life. After they graduate, remember you are producing chargeable battery or not chargeable battery. That's the key question here. Because if the student forgot everything you said, that means it's extremely bad to tell the student to stay in your class. After graduation, even if the student walk into the library and go read the book, the textbook, he cannot remember what the teacher said. How can you allow this to happen? Because that's the same as the student did not take your class. Yeah, that's very unfair. It's very unfair to the student because this is called a lousy teacher. The best time to evaluate the teacher is not at the end of the semester. It's to be evaluated 5 years later. 5 years later, 5 years after graduation, and the student go to the library, can you remember by reading the book, can you remember what the teacher said? The student said, I cannot remember anything. That means no matter how good is the teacher is a lousy teacher. Because the student wasted his money to pay the tuition, attend the class.
Right. Professor Hui,
Yeah.
can we move on to the next questions? Because
Yeah,
now it seems that there is a string of questions on the chat box. But can I suggest that you disable the sharing of your slides so that we can have you bigger on screen?
Okay.
And then you can make this big sign like you are.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Thank you. Can you see me now?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, great. So how many students, how many people are there in the so-called participant right now?
I think 126 at the moment.
Oh my goodness, 126, great.
There are quite a few more on Facebook. And there is a question before I pass to, there is somebody who would like to ask you personally, but before, could I just read one question coming from Bikash Chandra? It's in the chat box. He was asking, could you please kindly explain again about the need, about hard thinkers, needing hard thinkers rather than hard workers?
Hard thinker and hard worker, right?
Yeah.
The two go hand in hand. Now, be careful here. You should develop a thinking attitude, right? Now, how do you get the thinking attitude in? First of all, the student must be interested. Okay, the student want to know what happened when certain things happen in a classroom. Well, hard thinker is when you do not understand how to solve some problem in a book. What do? You should think. Is it because the student's fault or is it the teacher's fault? Or is it the book's fault, right? When I was a student, when I solved the problem, I do not understand. I said, oh, there must be a misprint there. And I was like, oh my God, you're not going to get that many misprint, right? So because chances are, if I do not solve this problem correctly, it's my fault. Okay, but there may be a misprint, but chances of that is very small. So then the thinking comes in. Okay, the thinker part comes in because it's where the design problem is coming in. Okay, the design problem is to develop the thinking part of it. The thinking part, now that's not the same as tricky part. It's not tricky, but it's just thinking that's needed. And it depends on the culture here. The teacher is of course emphasizing hard work, okay, that you need to work hard. Work hard on everything that you can then try to work hard. But you should develop some there are certain times that you have to put the pencil down. The pencil here, you put it down. Don't write anymore. Sit down, close your eye, and think. Now you say, why do that? If I do that, then I'll be wasting all my time. I'm supposed to study for the book, right? I know that. But if you keep on studying for the book, you're not thinking. So you should be able to keep on reading it here and be able to say, close my eye, and then go back to sleep. Now, when you're sleeping here, you're thinking about the problem here. Now, don't go to sleep, but you really think about it. Now, that is called thinking, right? Now, thinking means that you should be able to relate to what the teacher said. Now, why is it my mind is blocked? Well, your mind is blocked because you forgot to wash the dishes. That's the problem here. now that because your forgotten things that you don't have enough capability to develop your thinking. If you develop your thinking, you need a continuous process that comes from daily refreshing what the professor said. Okay, now hardworking here means, well, assuming you did what I said, right? Assuming that 2 hours after the same hour you go to class, you spend immediately the same day, or at least 1 hour of the 2-hour homework is immediately after the professor said something. Okay, assuming you clean it up every day, assuming you do that, then you should ask yourself too, did the professor give you thought-provoking lecture? Did he do that? Or he presented exactly the same thing in a book and give it to you and say, oh my God, if the professor gives this thing back exactly the same word for word and give it to you, that's the same as you are watching that book. That book never come alive. Because then why would you need a teacher then? You don't need a teacher. You can read the book. Okay, so that book is still with you. Then you can blame the professor here. The student cannot think because the professor did not make the book alive. Now, the professor, assuming the professor made the book alive, then the only question is the student alive? There are the only two reasons why the student cannot think. The professor cannot make the book alive, or the student cannot come alive himself. The student is dead. That's the problem here. Two people has to be both alive in order to think, right? The professor has to be alive. The teacher, the student must be alive also. Okay. Then the question here is the student alive? Well, that depends on did the teacher teach properly? When he teach, did he say, oh, you memorize everything, you get an A in my class? No way. That's the wrong way to teach. Now, if the teacher teach like this, no wonder the student cannot think. And the student think, meaning that if you give in the exam a slightly different problem here, the student can turn the corner. The students are trained to turn corner all the time because the professor is turning corner every day in the lecture. And the professor is not doing that. No wonder the student cannot turn. No wonder the student cannot think because all you require to get an A in the class is to memorize everything. That's wrong. Okay. So, and even if you memorize everything, and even if you get an A, do not be happy because after you graduate, you will have forgotten everything. Because memorizing only without thinking means that you're guaranteed to produce the permanent brain dead after the final exam. Because you didn't go through the thinking. That's the problem here. You can do well, but you didn't get the thinking. That's why the exam should not be based on only memorization. This memorization is the so-called hard work. It's not easy, okay? It's not easy. It's memorization, meaning not just memorizing the term. You're memorizing how to solve that equation here. Oh my God, you say, well, I solved a lot of problems, good for you. But then if you solve all the problems just by memorizing what the book tells you how to solve those problems, you're memorizing this, and that's why you do well in the exam. You're memorizing what the books tell you how to solve the problem, and you do that, and that's called memorizing. No way, because when you graduate, you lose everything. No wonder when you graduate, you be an idiot because your professor did not teach properly. You should be able to have the professor give you the thought-provoking. So everything the professor said is to lead you, to provoke you to think. Now, did the professor provoke you to think? If the answer is no, then the professor should not work anymore, should find another job. There's something wrong with the professor. Did the professor entice you to think? No? Then I'm sorry. But of course, there's certain part that you require hard work. I know that, okay? I know that. But then it's not enough, because today's lecture is 3 parts. First part is the professor make the book alive. Then the second part is the professor must at least give you the proper training, okay? This is the information. He's going to make sure the student get the information before the professor released his hand out. That's called a relay, right? That's called a relay. What is the relay? The professor gives you the information, the student get it, and the professor leaves the hand out. Got it? That's a relay. That's a relay, right? So if the professor gives you the information, the student get it, you make sure the student get it. How do you make sure? You move your hand a little bit. Make sure that it's not loose. You got it? What I mean? The student come in here, okay? You feel it. It's almost getting it. You release it, then you stop it, right? You make sure the student only grab it, and you shake a little bit, then make sure it doesn't get loose. Then you can get the teacher can then get out. Now, how do you shake a little bit? You test them by quizzes, the midterm, the final exam, and so on, right? You make sure. That's what I mean here. So if the student do badly in the midterm, the teacher should ask themselves, did I provoke the student to think? Did the proper way to teach? Instead of put the finger on the student, this student, you're no good. This student no good, that student no good, that student no good. Why don't you put the finger on the teacher? I am no good. I did not teach properly. I did not entice my students to think. Okay, remember the 3 picture here? First picture, professor make the book come alive. Second picture, the Olympic game here, come in here, and then you got to deliver the information. The student had to get it. Okay, the third one here is rechargeable battery. Rechargeable battery does depend on the thinking part. The thinking part is not there, and that's why the battery is dead after graduation. So there are 3 things comes in to your advantage here, okay? Thought-provoking lecture. That's the key. So after the lecture here, the student's supposed to go home and say, how come my professor asked this question here? It should bother the student. The student didn't get it. Now, if the professor cannot teach this kind of language, then the student go home, they did not understand, they're still very happy, and that kind of attitude here, then that's the wrong attitude from the student. I know that. So somehow you have to say, is it the professor's fault or is it the student's fault? The student is responsible to develop that habit of being uncomfortable, that we call something bother me. What bother me? There's something that the professor said. I didn't get it. That's why it bothered me. Now, if it doesn't bother me, that's the student's job, the student's fault. You know, when the teacher gives you the information like this, the student doesn't get it. That's the student's fault. Okay, this is a two-way information here. The teacher has to do properly. The student has to do properly. Otherwise, this thing won't work. That's not a relay. RELAY in the Olympic. That's the important part of the teaching in the classroom. And I think that you need to say, who is to blame? Well, then you think about it. Is the professor wrong or is the student wrong? And if the professor is wrong, dear professor, please reconsider today's lecture. Could be a game changer for you, a new life for you, so that a lot of students in the classroom depend on you. So I hope that this makes sense. Are there any other questions, please?
Yes, Professor Hui, can I invite somebody from the audience, Otto Shihite? He wants to ask you a question directly.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Andanastuti. I'm very interested in this webinar. So I'm Otto Shihite from Indonesia, from Universitas Pelita Harapan. Today, I'm trying to make a proposal for my dissertation. It's about the effective teaching. So, actually, I have 3 questions to Prof. David Wee. Number 1 is, what action and plans do you have? As you know, that students now are very busy with their study cards, plans, and often teachers are unable to attend the teaching. So that the teaching and learning is effective. This is the first question. And the second question is that during this pandemic, there are many students who cannot enjoy the practical or who cannot do the practical exams, that where some students who not attend the lectures or the class because of inadequate of infrastructures or something like that. And this question number 3 is at your university in the US, you are currently teaching whether there is a supporting documents that the students can teach. You can teach the student properly by creating or a contingency plan to mitigate all the missing plans. Do you have any plans like that in the universities that you are teaching right now? That's my question to Prof. David. Thank you.
Can you go one step at a time then? Okay, otherwise I'm confused. Just the first question at a time. Now I get an idea how to answer. Yeah. Can you repeat the first question, please?
The first question or the third question?
Only one. The first one.
The first question is what action and plan do you have? As you know that the students are now very busy to do their study card plans, and often the teachers are also unable to attend the teaching. And so in order to make the learning and teaching plan is more effective, as we have the webinar right now, effective teaching and learning. That's the first question.
Now, how does a teacher make it more effective, right? During the so-called pandemic learning, long distance learning, right? Now,
that's the second question, Prof. David Wee.
Okay, the first question is on what?
The first question is that sometimes some lectures sometimes cannot make a teaching because of unable to attend the teaching. Yeah. So as you know, the students are very busy to have some exam, as you said before. Students are very busy to reach their plans card or study card. Yeah. So how to make this very suitable to make the more effective for both lectures and.
If the teacher is busy or the student is busy, somehow they miss each other. What is the remedy for this, right? And
yeah, something like that.
The remedy is self-learning, right? Self-learning. In other words, the teacher should explain, someday I will not be with you because you graduate, or somehow you're not going to see me, and so on, right? So the teacher should be able to enable the student to survive by themselves, just to grow up. Remember that thing here, spoon feed, the spoon feed method here. The teacher keep on spoon feeding the student, and the student would say, I'm full. That doesn't work. So how does the student grow up to no longer be a baby, right? Need to be able to learn by themselves.
Yeah, sometimes the students are like that, cannot reach the time or something like that.
There are some suitable textbook for that. First thing is that professors should choose a certain textbook here that is more emphasis on self-learning, such as problem solving, whatever, right? Some textbooks are more suitable for where the professor is teaching, right? Some textbooks are more suitable for, even if some professor were not able to teach, the student could still maximize their learning. So to choose those textbooks. Secondly,
so there will be some gentleman agreement between both, yeah? So
yeah, but the agreement here is that the level of punishment, right? How do you decide the level of punishment, or somehow the student can make it up? So that's why I told you, you should have at least the phone number of one other student in the class. The students should learn from their fellow students. Now, if that student depends only on the professor, and he said he doesn't know any student in the classroom, then the professor assign a partner for them. Okay, initially I ask them to do it the way they can. If they cannot do that, then the professor assigns the partner. So you miss the class, you ask your friend. Your friend take note for you, and then you're responsible to learn from your friend. This next time, the friend will be away. You take the note for them and learn from each other by solving problem together and
Okay.
collaborate. Okay, and if the pandemic thing could be improved, of course, it's not the ideal way to learn things, but even in non-ideal way to do things, the students should be at least willing to be there as if they are not in the pandemic. Okay, now how do you do that? The students should not be sleeping on the bed and watch the movie and say, "Oh, I attended your class." The students should be more seriously taking notes. Okay, you cannot just say, "Okay, I can watch my professor lecturing by sleeping on my bed." No way, no way, don't do that. And how do you make sure that the students should at least turn on the camera when the teacher is teaching? Okay, and then if possible, ask, as I said, ask the student questions so that when the student cannot answer, you should say, where are you? Okay, you should be able to do that interactively. And then what is the third question?
Okay, the last one is in the university you are teaching right now in the States. You know that during this pandemic, some students cannot attend right now. You know that do you have in the state supporting documents or something like academic contingency plan that students can understand, or that lecturers can directly make some mitigation or to missing plans that they are working on it?
What do you mean? You from Malaysia or Indonesia want to come to America? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm asking what kind of document do you have? Something like academic contingency plan, yeah. As some articles I read in the journals that some university in the States have academic contingency plan. Do you have right now there in your university?
Academic contingency plan meaning that if the student was sick or cannot attend classes, what should the student do in order to complete the
correct,
right?
Yeah.
The students should be allowed more leniency in handing in the homework, more leniency in case they are not able to do well on the exam. More leniency.
But do you have the rule or something like that, the Prof.
As lenient as possible.
As lenient as possible.
It would be allowed that somehow in the past it's more strict. But now, because it's very serious in America, we are now much more lenient. But no matter how lenient, the question still is: when you take the class during pandemic, does your grade count? Does the employer accept that? That's another question too, because I could have given them student A in my class, and the employer said, "Look, you took this course when this was a pandemic, so how can I trust you? Your A is the same as all the other A." That is beyond my control. That's why the professor during pandemic cannot be too lenient. Okay, because if he's too lenient like this, then everybody will suffer in his class, because then the industry will say, "Sorry, this grade cannot come," and so on. So you have to watch out for that. Now it depends on the reputation of the professor too. If the professor is highly reputable, then the industry tend to believe him. Then it's okay. He got an A. Yeah, but I know the professor will not give A because he's a good professor. Most good professor has high standard. Now, based on that, still you have a pandemic, right? So should the professor be more understandable? Okay. Now, how do I know the student will be cheating or not cheating? Well, then also it's another reason to say that, can the professor guarantee the three things I said, right? I said the book must come alive, and all the students behave like the Olympic, and they are now like a battery that could be recharged. Now, on the issue of recharging battery here, that's going back to the previous question here, the thought-provoking process here. Are the professor telling the student to think, or he keep on talking? There was no interaction, no interactive. That's bad. Now, how can you have interactive when the students are sleeping on the bed and watching the professor teach? That means it's a one-way talk, right? One-way talk. No, that's not going to work. One-way talk means that the students are not getting the maximum learning. Okay, this is at most just accepting the information, but not digesting the information, not thinking about it. It's a hard worker, but not a good thinker. The thinker is the one that digests the information. Okay, and therefore, in the pandemic here, the professor will have to somehow allow more time, meaning that you have 2 hours in the exam, I give you 1 more hour, 3 hours. You have 2 hours in the homework, I give you 1 more hour. So you have more time, and the question here is more related towards something the student can do in case they're sick. They're a little bit more tend towards self-study style. In fact, long distance is self-study. So if I can change my teaching a little bit towards self-study, that's the professor's job. And the professor is not teaching job. He's teaching the same way as he's in the classroom. It doesn't work. Because in the classroom, the student asks questions here. In a pandemic, students do not ask questions. That's the problem here. Now, if the student is asking questions in the pandemic, that's good. That's good. But that's not true, right? And the absentees are more in the pandemic. And then it's a different situation. So the only remedy from the professor's standpoint is to make it as self-study as possible. And the only remedy is, as I would say, more time, but not sacrificing content. The professor cannot sacrifice content just because of the pandemic, but he can allow more time. Then that's better than reducing the so-called content. In other words, I keep the same standard, but I give you more time. How's that? That's the best compromise. Am I clear?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you cannot lower standard because the standard lower because you're in a pandemic. No way I'll lower my standard. And the student doesn't want to. The student does not want professor to lower the standard, because if you do that, then the industry was not going to hire you, because they know that you got an A because the professor lowered the standard. No way.
Professor Hui, we have other questions also.
Okay,
Yeah, we still have more questions. Can we proceed to the next few questions?
okay, are they written? Okay.
Yeah, in the chat, somebody is asking about how do you teach postgraduate students from different backgrounds and countries?
Okay, that's easy. The graduate study here is totally on thinking. In undergrad, it's half and half. Half thinking, half no thinking. No thinking means that you work hard, you got it. Okay. Now, graduate study is something to discover something, not just in a book, a little bit outside the book, and then towards the usefulness of it. Now, then if you come from different background, then the question is your research only tend towards certain background? Now, for example, you might say engineering mechanics and material science, this is my field, right? What is the difference between structures and materials? The structure and materials are the same to me, right? They are two of the same thing. But material science is a slightly different discipline. And the difference is material science is a little bit less dependent on mathematics. Structural mechanics is a little bit more dependent on mathematics, like finite elements and also the equations and so on. So therefore, depending on which country too, right? Certain countries are good in mathematics. I know that in India, China, Turkey, and so on, they love mathematics. And in some countries, they don't. So there may be a difference there, okay? And for some reason, the female students prefer chemistry. I don't know why. Chemical engineering is mostly female students. I don't know why. But mechanical engineering is mostly male. So there's some difference between male and female, country and so on. And background, right? Background could be, I just said, some people with very heavy economic stress, especially COVID-19, right? And some people are less stressed depending on that. So the thing is, if you have studied in a graduate study, you are more depending on the reputation of the professors, not the reputation of the school. Whereas in undergraduate study, your name of the school is more important than the name of the professor teaching you. So it's a different thing. In graduate study here, if the professor were able to be compatible with a different nationality, then it's okay, it doesn't matter. The keyword is still compatibility, right? So somehow the professor herself come from the same region as the student, it may be a little bit more compatible. So this is preferred in some cases. So if I'm from Malaysia, for example, and I feel like working or studying, helping Malaysia, that's natural, that's okay. But if I'm not a Malaysian, is it okay too? Of course it's okay, but it's not as I would say as the same cultural background, so as the same thing. However, it should not be officially a big difference here. Unofficially, yes, there's a difference here in a more respective background, such as more strict background, right? So in other words, the student is supposed to study homework every day, and then it's a must, okay? And then whereas generally speaking, if you come from Western country, you're more free, right? You're more free to think the problem. You can search for the different solution yourself and so on. Basically, it's not supposed to be a big difference, but there are some small differences there. Any question, please? Does it make sense?
The next question comes from Si Meng Lim, and he's asking, in a class, we have both fast learners and slow learners. So how should we make a balance during the teaching for this?
Now, how do you make a balance here? First of all, there's no difference between intelligent and not intelligent in the two parts of my class. The first part is the memorization part. The memorization part is the same. It doesn't matter you are A student, a lousy student. If you work hard, you get it. That's what we mean by memorization. Now, the other part here is on thinking. Now, that's a different thing. On a different thing. Thinking depends heavily on who is teaching you. On the memorization, it doesn't matter who the professor is. You take the book, even if it's that book, you get it. Memorize it and keep working, you got it. And then that's called the memorization part. Now, in engineering and science, the emphasis should be at least on the earlier stage, the first year and the second year, on the fundamental, right? The fundamental part, although you still need to think, but you could get by. And the question still is different level in the classroom, all right? Now, why is it there's a different level? The answer is it because the student work harder? Yeah. And it's because the background? The background is that the students know if they do not work hard, they will not graduate. If they do not graduate, they will be hungry for the rest of their life because their parents are very poor. That's called background. That's what we mean by background. And when you say that with that kind of background, is the student differential, right? The A student, the B, and the C, right? Is it because the teacher did not teach properly, or is it because the student did not do properly? That's a big thing there, big difference. Because two students could be same level, right? They're both C students. One is because, remember the story of the relay, right? In the Olympic, right? You can blame the teacher did not teach them properly, or the student did not behave properly. So who is to blame? Depend, right? They both no good students. Now, if the professor is to blame, then you improve the professor, you'll be okay. Now, if the teacher is to blame, that's what you should do. Now, you should not have that kind of teacher in your university, right? It should be same quality teaching. You should not blame the teacher if the student doing badly, and especially undergrad. You cannot say that, okay? Now, the only problem here is if they are having the same teacher, you cannot blame the teacher. Then who can you blame? You can only blame the student, right? You blame the student. And the students are lazy. The students are somehow no interest, not motivated. Now, if you cannot blame the professor, then the students are responsible for that. Now, if the student is responsible to get the C, then definitely they belong to the C. Now, if the teacher is responsible, even though the student get a C, as far as I'm concerned, they do not get a C. They do not deserve a C to begin with. So therefore, I do not consider them as inferior. I consider them as someone who is, this is a tragedy. Something very bad happened to the student, but it's not the fault of the student. If the teacher didn't teach properly. Now, if that's the case, then these are not bad students. I can teach the same way as before. That I can help, I can teach it if they are B students. Now, not A, but B, right? So I teach as a fairness here to everybody. I teach on the B level, not A, not C, not D, but B. B is not the best, but at least quite good. That's what I mean. Now, from the B student, from the B, I can expect the A one has to reach down a little bit to reach my level of teaching. But then the C and D one had to go up to reach my level of teaching. Now, isn't that fair? Well, but then there's nothing else. There's nothing fair. But this is the fair among the so-called unfair world, right? So the professors should teach from the B level, A, B level, not A. Now, from the B level, how does the professor compromise the two, right? Because there will be a compromise, and that compromise depends on the office hour. And depends on many factors here, such as are the professor progressing too fast or too slow? You cannot be too fast, okay? So for the ones that are extremely fast, here very angry about me teaching at the B level, then you cannot blame me because there are lots of people even below the B, not just B, but below the B, right? So then those advanced students, we give them the so-called honored title, right? Honor project. So there's an honor grade behind the A that they will get. Is that true in your university? If not, then you've got to make sure that there is there. So those A students, when they do a certain project, they get A, not an A plus, not A plus, but a little bit more rewarding, right? And then if you're really that good, you call it the A student in my class or something like that. Yeah. But just doing some extra homework. Now, for the C, it's okay. C is just one level below B. But for the D one, yeah, what do you do with the D one? Now, A, B, C, D, right? D one, you need to have special care for that. So the professor must know who are the D in my class. Now, the professor does not know who are the D. There's something wrong with the professor. Now, those with the D are not just lacking the intellectual, but they're also lacking memorization. So the memorization, there's nothing the professor can do because that's kind of like a self-study, right? So then the only thing professor could do is try to get them interested. Okay, as I said, washing the same dishes the same day will make them interested automatically. Hopefully, the D will get interested and then get back to a C, ABC, the C, right? That's what it is. So with this compromise here, we can also give a little bit of encouragement to the A student. I can tell the A student saying that, dear A student here, I, as a teacher, will be evaluated by the student. I do not mind the D student to think I'm a lousy teacher, but it hurt me if you are A student and you do not like my class. So I must do some extra work for you so that I feel good. So my preference is that I will spend some time with you and see maybe after you graduate, you could still relate it to me when you find a job, right? So somehow I can then say that you are a student and you find a job, and I still could be your friend and help your company grow, and your company can then use me as a free consultant, and then perhaps someday you can take a part-time master or part-time PhD with me. So this is what I will do for the A+ student, right? The A student. For the B, no need to do anything because I'm teaching at the B level. C student here, I will encourage all my C saying that if you could work hard, you get a B, okay? And the D one here is the big trouble here. I need help. Namely, I'm gonna ask the TA to help me and get the so-called tutorial, right? Help out on the D student. That's how I get the different levels of A, B, C, D type of student in my class. Have everybody happy. Thank you. Any other question, please?
All right, yeah. Professor Hui, I think we're coming towards the end of the lecture. It's almost 2 hours now.
Okay.
But can I just read one question? But can you give the answer in within 1 minute, maybe? Because I think you have the answer already. As a
Yeah, 1 hour, 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute.
How do you keep your motivation and energy high to deliver lecture during pandemic?
Okay, motivation is not easy here. I think what I can do is we treat this as a neighborhood thing, right? The neighborhood. So I think that this student, we are now neighbor because look, we are in a lockdown, same as you, right? So I am your neighbor, and therefore neighbor helping neighbor, that keep the morale high. That's the first thing I can say. Secondly is that I usually give them some kind of how are you, especially some people who doesn't respond to me and doesn't come to class and things like that, and say, hey, hello, are you well? A little bit worried they are sick, right? So that keep the morale high. And finally, I usually say that because we are sticking together in difficult time, that show the true friendship, not just when we're happy time. When we are low, we show the true feeling, the true meaning of a friendship. So I treat my student as if they are my friend. So does it help? So
it helps a lot because I feel the same way too. You know, we're all in it together, students and lecturers. We're all in it together. So it's really nice when you show a lot of empathy to the students. It's something really wonderful. So Professor Hui, now I think we have come to the end of the 2-hour session with you. It really has been a privilege to have you with us. Can you see me on the screen? I think you're that's
okay.
Thank
you.
Yeah. So,
dear student, could you please write to me? My email dhui@uno.edu.
Why don't you write that down at the on the chat box? Do you know how to get that down? I think you did it last time.
This is on my my screenshot here. My screenshot show me. Can you see that? My screenshot here, and then the first screen.
Yeah, the first slide. Yes.
Could you please write down and communicate with me? Very important, please.
Yeah, all the audience, you are invited to communicate directly with Professor David Hui. He likes to engage with a lot of people worldwide. So you can email him at dhui@uno.edu as shown on the screen. So I'm sure he will be very happy to hear from you. It's okay. We'd love to hear from you. You can email him.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's always very excited. Yes.
I was born in your land. So I said that the first air that I breathe is from your country. So I'm forever. At that time I was just a baby, right? I come home from my mother. First air come from Malaysia. I will never forget that first air. Without that first air, I will not be alive today.
Yeah.
So thank you. We're forever grateful.
And we all love Malaysia then. So thank you very much, Professor Hui. And I also would like to thank all the participants who actually joined us and who stayed until the end of the 2-hour session. And if you look in the chat box, all audience, you can also find the form, Google form by Pengajaran-UKM, and they would like to hear from you as well with your feedback.
Can everybody write the comment on you like it, you do not like it, so that you can fill your comment about my lecture, and then keep in touch in the next coming years together. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we look forward to also inviting you again, Professor Hui, on our online sessions. It's always very fascinating to watch you and you give your lecture.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm so happy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. And I also must thank Pengajaran UKM. I forgot to thank Pengajaran UKM for inviting me to moderate the session today. Yeah. So I think that's about it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pengajaran. Thank you, Professor Hui. Thank you, all audience. With that, yeah, I think that we end the session. All right. Have a good sleep, Professor Hui.
It's okay. I enjoyed so much. I'm so excited. It's okay. Thank you. I look forward to visiting all of you. Okay.
Yeah.
Malaysia. Thank you.